Hi guys, welcome back to Natty's Book Corner. I am Natasha, aka Natty, and it's been a long hiatus, guys, and I miss talking about the Wheel of Time. So the Wheel of Time reread is back. We need to finish up with the Shadow Rising, and we have a few people missing. Hopefully we can get some of them on tonight, but we do have one person so far, and that is Christy. Say hello, Christy. So nice to see you again.
Hello, Christy. It's so nice to see me again.
Oh, such a smart aleck. I love you. Okay, so when we left off, we were kind of wrapping up just a tiny bit Rand's story arc for the Shadow Rising, but we didn't touch a whole bunch of it because there was just so much going on in this book, and we still needed to touch on Elayne and Nynaeve's story arc as well as Perrin, the my favorite story arc of the book. In my opinion, it was my favorite story arc. So let's talk a little bit about Egwene because she kind of ties into Elayne and Nynaeve because they met up a lot in Tel Riyadh. She was in the midst of training with the wise women and just all that drama. She was so eager to learn and just she was just all over the place, and initially she was trying to meet them secretly, but eventually got caught, and so eventually it became like a wise one was with her while Nynaeve or Elayne met with her to discuss, what's going on with them, what their search was, how their search was going, because what was decided was that Elayne and Nynaeve would go to Tanchico to find out what the Black Aja was trying to find that could hurt Rand. Initially, they had, at the end of Dragon Reborn, they had caught two of the Black Sisters. I think it was three. Was it three or just two?
No, it was two.
It was two, okay. And one of them was stilled, and the other one was just caught, cut off from the source and whatnot. So, one was saying, they're looking for something in Tanchico, and I'm trying to remember what the other one was talking about.
Amiko was the one that was saying they were going to Tanchico, and
Right.
Joya was the one that was saying they were going after Mazrim Taim.
Okay. And they were trying to figure out, like, well, who to believe. So Egwene, went to Riyadh to try and figure out, who's telling the truth, and she actually used Need without realizing that's what she was doing. And initially she went to the Aiel Waste, if I recall correctly, and then she went to Tanchico.
That was a stray thought.
It was a
She was,
straight thought. Okay.
yeah, it was a stray thought that took her there, and she ended up in Amisa's dream.
Right. And actually, that was a good thing. It's funny how like a stray thought could lead you on a totally different path that's totally unexpected. That's why I love this series, and it wound up being a huge boon for Egwene because I think she wouldn't have learned as much as she did if it wasn't for the wise women.
Well, the wise ones. They're
Wise
not
ones,
called
I should
wise ones.
say. Wise
Yeah.
women, wise ones.
If it wasn't for them, I mean, spoilers later on. I mean, they definitely needed the training and Tel'aria.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Tel'aran.
Well, not only with Egwene, but also Nynaeve and Elayne, because they also kind of got into the lessons just a tiny bit, even though they were farther away, because they could meet each other in the dream world. Um, so Egwene winds up going to with Rand and everybody to
This is. We're having an argument here. This is why I'm on headband that the Aiel wear. It's got nothing to do with Aes Sedai. This is Aiel.
okay. So Egwene and Rand and Matt and everybody, they go to the Aiel Waste, and Egwene is training with the Wise One. So that's pretty much her story arc. She does learn several things, like how to manipulate, her appearance, and Nynaeve learns that too later on in the story here, and also just how she could be in someone else's dream, like how, to control what's going on around her, how she can manipulate someone else's, dream if necessary. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and the wise ones were definitely adamant against that.
Yes, yes, they were definitely. Egwene in this book, she was so eager to learn, but it was still annoying a lot because it's like you need to learn your place and you need to respect the wise ones and why they're trying to teach you baby steps here. I know that you are trying to train to be Aes Sedai, but at the same time here, you're already lying about the fact that you're Aes Sedai here. So just go with it.
Right.
Pigtails, I loved it. I love the pigtails.
The pigtails were great.
Yes, they were awesome.
I think she needed to be in that for a lot longer than she was.
Yes, but I really,
But that's me.
yeah, I definitely think Egwene's time with the Wise Ones, um, developed her character for the better, in my opinion. Because she was
Yeah.
definitely annoying up to this point, and it's funny because when I was reading it for like the first, second, third time, I really didn't realize how annoying she was until this recent reread, and I get why people don't like her. um,
Oh yeah.
so,
It took me until Gathering Storm to actually give her, a point or two.
yeah,
So,
and and you know what? That's so sad because it's like it took 10 books, like 10, 11 books for that to happen. Like it, it's
yeah.
kind of sad here. But now that we can kind of touch on Nyneave and Elayne because again they're going to Tanchico. They decide that the Tanchico is the best course. They feel like something's there that will endanger Rand. So the funny thing is that we discussed last time way back in June or May that
Man.
Lan and Rand kind of sent Julian and Tom and Moraine a little bit too. They
Yeah, Moraine sent Tom.
Moraine sent Tom. Lance and Julian though I thought.
Right.
Lan and
Lan
Julian.
sent Julian, but
Lan and Rand sent Julian.
right.
Okay, they both kind of threatened him if he didn't go, he would be in big trouble and all that jazz. So they
Right.
managed to catch up with him like at the last minute, and they managed to get on the boat. Now this was interesting too because we learn through Nyneave and Elayne's boat trip, they actually wind up going on a sea folk ship, and they find out that one of like the headmistress is it headmistress? Oh gosh, my
No,
terminology is so wrong
it's
in
the
this.
God, what are they called?
I know they're
It's
called windfinders, but it's kind of like
Windfinders and then the Sail Mistress.
the sail mistress. But I feel like Windfinder definitely gives it away that they're Aes Sedai, or they're able to channel. So that's
Yeah.
so Elayne figures out that the Windfinders can channel, and she actually learns a few things like with the flows of air and that kind of a thing, and why the Seafoam ships are pretty much the fastest ships, pretty much of the ships that go around the world here, and I
Yes,
like
she
the
is.
yeah, and I liked the friendship that developed between her and oh gosh, I'm gonna
Um, God, what is her name?
oh gosh, it's been so long, guys. I swear.
Um, boy, I know it. I know it starts with an S, but I don't remember what it is.
Oh gosh, I went blank, guys. Sorry, brain fart. Um, gosh darn it. But anyway, she develops a friendship, and they kind of learn on the cuff the art of bargaining with the sea folk. It's kind of like a give or take here. Like they'll take you to where you need to go, and the reason why they're reluctant to take Aes Sedai is because their windfinders can channel. You know how the Aes Sedai are. They're like, they need to go to the tower to learn training. And it seems like we're slowly finding out here that there are other cultures out there that have women that can channel, but they're able to handle it in a way that they don't really need the White Tower.
Right.
And and it must be like, I guess, a blow, so to speak, even though, because they feel like these cultures at least feel like, you know what, I don't, why would I want to go to the White Tower? All you're going to do is just make me take these oaths that I don't really want to take. I just want to live my life. Um, so it's kind of one of those things. So I definitely thought that that part of the story arc was pretty cool. What did you think, Christy?
Excuse the dogs. I don't know who that is. I was looking up that it's Joran.
Joran. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, Joran and Coeen is the sail mistress. So sorry, I had to look that up. So, but
It only
it
gets
was,
worse. It gets worse with the names.
yeah, it's interesting. I like the way that Elayne was almost to the point of discovering the secret behind Tom,
Oh yes,
and
yes, yes,
then
yes.
the way, yeah, I mean, because you also find out that there are Aiel that can channel. I like the way that both cultures are like, yeah, no, we don't want to have anything to do with you because the Aes Sedai are completely, totally too arrogant for their own good.
Yes, I completely agree. Um, it just seems like we're learning more and more that the Aes Sedai, you're a little too big for your britches here, and even though you want to control every woman that can channel, you really can't, and that's really disrespectful to someone that has a different culture and has a different way of seeing things. And if they're able to control or surrender themselves to the source, that's all that matters. So
And they actually find out, like with with Joran, is that she can weave larger weaves. They're actually stronger and bigger than what Aes Sedai can actually do.
yeah, so it seems like there's an opportunity here to learn
To
from
learn.
to learn versus just take. Because
Right.
I feel like it seems like if the Aiel hadn't really hid the fact that they kept that kind of part of their culture to themselves, I feel like we wouldn't have known what. I think the wise ones wouldn't have had the training in dream walking as they do. Like, because
Right.
the White Tower would just take it, exploit it, what have you, and still not understand what's going on. At least, the dream walkers and the wise ones have an understanding. They know it's dangerous. They learn that from the get go, and the training that they get, which includes switching and pigtails and all that jazz. I mean, that's a in a way, I feel like
Digging
it's a better
holes
way
is
of
very
learning than what the White Tower was doing. So, and because there weren't that many Dreamwalkers in the first place with the White Tower, they wouldn't know what to do.
right. So, yeah, there were the four to begin with, and they ended up losing one, which was Sienna. And the Drakkar had gotten her.
Oh yeah, that was unfortunate. Wait, was that in this
So
book?
they,
That was at
yeah, that
Colroxo,
was
right? Okay, that was at Colroxo.
right.
Okay, just making sure. Again, merging the
Yeah, it
two
was
books
a
here.
little bit further.
Yeah, just a little
Yeah.
bit. Just a little bit. So all right, so Elaine and Elaine, Nynaeve and Elaine, arrive in Tanchico. They try and
I
find a
don't know,
hotel.
Elaine and Elaine work because, Elaine's got so much of an ego that it just covers up everybody else.
You know what?
Elaine
Nynaeve
and
has her
Elaine.
own ego. Let's be for real.
Yeah,
Nynaeve
that's
has her
true.
own ego. For real, for real. Um, were you frustrated that despite using Teleronria, they couldn't figure out that the bracelet in Tanchico was the danger to Rand until Nynaeve touched it? It was like they kept on going to the same place. Why aren't you finally figuring out, okay, maybe this is the place or the thing that is a danger to Rand? Like it.
Considering what it wasn't until Egwene, had actually told him what it was that they actually saw the danger that it could represent around.
Well,
So
not only.
even with touching it,
Well, yeah, but she had an inkling be based on touching it because Nynaeve did touch the idom, so she
right?
definitely had a suspicious
Well, because
inkling of what it was.
the idom with the women and everything, you touch that, you don't feel. I mean, unless you're wearing it and are attached to somebody else, you don't feel the pain and everything like that. Whereas with the male domination band, you don't. You feel it as soon as you go to touch it. So it
Yeah,
was there were two completely different made items. They're similar, but they don't exactly have um, cat- uh, the same characteristics.
yeah, it's similar but still different.
Right?
Um, I mean, I was kind of getting frustrated just because it was like, all right, you're at the same place. This must
It's got to be
what
here.
gotta be here. Why are you doubting that it's not? I mean, and Egwene was having that same issue, but unfortunately, she didn't realize that's what it was. Um,
Right.
so it was understandable but frustrating at the same time. It's like, come on,
Right.
guys, figure it out.
After the 12th reread, it's like you're sitting there going, "It's right there, guys.
I never, yeah,
Guys, it's right
and maybe that's what it is too.
here."
It's like after so many rereads, you're just like, come on, man, y'all couldn't figure that out then. Like, really? Yeah, you have to be handed. It has to be planted in your face. Like, what?
So,
So with Nynaeve and Elayne, we get to meet one of the Forsaken, Mo Gideon. I call her Mogadine or Mogideon. What do you call
Mogideon.
her? Mogideon?
It's Mogideon, yeah.
Okay. Because I think in the audio, oh gosh, what's her name? Kind of calls her Mogadine a little bit sometimes.
Yeah,
She
they
switches back
mess
and
it up a
forth.
lot. She goes
Yeah,
back and forth between it, yeah.
yeah, she does. So no wonder I get confused. I'm like, all right, I'll call her whatever.
Well,
Uh,
it's like Nassim Taim is they couldn't get his name right until um the Black Tower was being built.
right?
So we're talking like the seventh or eighth book, they
Yeah,
finally started getting Taim, and I think it took Jordan saying flat out, "It's not tame, it's not time. There's nothing tame about this guy. It's Taim."
Taim.
So it's like, okay, sorry.
So what were your initial thoughts of this latest Forsaken that has been hinted at, but actually makes an appearance in this book? Hi, Ray.
Hey,
Yeah, I was sitting there pointing, look who's here.
I had switched to my questions, so that's why. Hi, Ray. It's so nice to see you.
good to see you. My apologies for my tardiness.
That's all right. Family. It happens. Stuff happens.
Hey,
Life happens. Look how long we've had to kind of schedule this thing here. So I'm glad that we're back. It's like the three of us are
look at
back.
him. He looks more like his uncle now.
Oh my gosh.
He's got a longer beard.
And I,
Yeah, I haven't. It's kind of a joke actually. A friend of mine and my cousin told me that they wanted me to braid my beard and tie it in a knot underneath my chin and take a picture. And I told them it wasn't long enough, and they said, "Well, you'll just have to grow it long enough to do it." So as soon as I grow it long enough, I'll braid it in the beard, tie it in the knot underneath my chin, take the picture, and then trim it.
so nice to have you. We were just discussing about we were starting with we started with Egwene a little bit because it kind of tied into Nynaeve and Elayne with her dream walking, learning how to dream walk a little bit more with the wise ones, and how we're starting to learn about the fact that some cultures are able to the women that can channel in that culture are able to take care of themselves and sustain themselves and create a respectability in their culture that's actually way better than what the White Tower has right now. in the rest of the world. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that, and also we were just starting to discuss Mogideon here, or Mogadine.
Mogideon.
Mogadine. See,
Okay, that's going to take some getting used to. There's another one I was pronouncing incorrectly. Well, I think it's clear that, from almost the beginning, we start to get a sense that the White Tower doesn't. Well, I wouldn't say the beginning. Probably somewhere around the Great Hunt, is when we start getting the idea that the White Tower doesn't necessarily have as much of a handle on, things as they think they do, and that they don't have nearly the monopoly on knowledge that they think they do. And it's mentioned at one point that, all right, an Aes Sedai can't lie, but that doesn't mean that they can't believe that the wrong thing is true.
Right.
Exactly. And the wise ones are a perfect example of this. I think they've actually got it way more together than the White Tower could even dream of having. The White Tower may know things that the wise ones don't in regards to channeling and other issues, but the wise ones are the ones that actually have it together, as far as their societal system. They're much more secure. They don't go in for the pettiness that a lot of the Aes Sedai do. So, and you also, we see that with other things we see later too.
Well, we get introduced to the sea folk, so we did touch on that because Elayne, that Nyneave and Elayne got on the sea folk ship, and they realized that the Windfinder can channel, and in fact Elayne, and I'm kind of glad that it's Elayne, and Nyneave that kind of learned this, and even Egwene to a sense with the wise ones, because these people they haven't been in the tower long, so they're able to actually see or get a hint of, hey, maybe the White Tower doesn't know, or isn't perfect, and there is something that we can learn from these cultures that also have women that can channel and also seem to have way more respect in their culture than the White Tower does around the world.
Right.
Yeah.
They respect their initiates a lot more than the White Tower does, because the White Tower treats you, you're a child no matter what until you're finally an Aes Sedai, and you can't possibly understand anything unless they tell you that you understand it. Whereas, like, the wise ones are, you still have your own honor. It doesn't matter how old you are. Once you become an apprentice to them, they don't go out of their way to beat you into the ground.
No, they expect you to act like an adult with responsibility, and the main thing that's going to potentially get you punished is if you don't.
Right.
So yeah.
Like the way Egwene acted when she got the pigtails. We already mentioned the pigtails.
Yeah,
we mentioned the pigtails. I was like, that is so awesome. Because, again, Egwene's been getting a little big for her britches. She feels like she knows a lot, and she really doesn't, especially with the dream world. Yeah, and it's like, you are technically still a novice here. You got accepted only because of what's been happening with Rand and everything. I have a feeling that's the only reason why you got up to accepted here. Like, let's be for real. You still would be a novice right now.
Well, actually, that Rand is a reason, but Swan is the only one that knows, about Rand at the moment, other than Moraine and
Baron.
And Baron.
Yeah, Baron knows. Well, yay, Baron.
Oh, yes. Baron's...
Spoilers.
No,
yeah.
Perrin, she got introduced in the Great Hunt, and you see a little bit of awesomeness here and there, but there is more awesomeness coming. So there's foreshadowing with that, definitely.
I love Perrin.
Oh my gosh, Perrin. Gosh, Oh my gosh. Okay. We're
But
gonna
anyway,
yeah. So
yeah.
now we can get on to Mogadine.
Okay. Mogideon.
Mogadine. Sorry, darn it. I'm getting it with the audio. I keep like
Anyway.
in my mind.
Okay, so it is Mogadien.
Mogadine.
Yes, it's Mogideon.
Okay, then I was correct. All right.
Okay.
So Mogadine. What?
Yeah.
Let's discuss
Disguise
Mogadine,
yourself.
the
If it makes you
spider.
feel any better, I
Disguise
didn't call him I didn't call Maelstrom Taim by the proper name at first either. So, you know.
Hey, neither did I. And no, the spoilers. God, my head is like full of spoilers.
Hold it together,
Okay.
Christy. Hold it
Anyway.
So Mogadine. Did that right? Okay. So Mogadine is considered the spider of the first among the Forsaken, because she strikes when you least suspect it, kind of a thing, or she spins her web behind the scenes, so to speak, and kind of strikes. So oh gosh, now I'm drawing a blank here. I can't remember if we first meet her with the Black Aja or when she uses compulsion on Nyneave and Elayne.
I think it's Ben.
She is disguised as Gildan with the Black Aja, so we see her there, but we don't see her knowing that it is her. And then
right. We have our suspicions that there's something going on with Galen, the maid, when Leandra kind of treats her like crap. You're like, sums up with that. Like, she's gonna feel totally sorry for doing that later on, and she did. Oh my gosh. Even more so in the next book, I think that the next book is when it really got down and dirty. But for right now, she knows, I think, by the end of this book that it is Mogadine that would Mogadine. No, Mogadine.
Mogadine.
That was see, this is gonna keep going on for I can't. Slap. Okay. Mogadine.
When I started trying to pronounce names differently, because I realized I was doing it wrong, it took me a good while to get used to it. And there's a couple. I still do not call her Nyneave. I call her Nyneave. I can't.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I used to pronounce her wrong.
Yes, I do, and I will continue to. It's a rebellious streak in me. I'm just I like Nyneave. I don't like the pronunciation Nyneave, and get over it.
So Mogadine, so it's kind of like, all right, so when she uses compulsion on Nyneave and Elayne, and I was just like, oh my gosh, they're just telling her all kinds of stuff. But I'm so glad that the questions that she asked didn't make them reveal everything that they had. Like the fact that they had the ring to get into the dream world and all that jazz. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, Elayne actually
thinks about it.
Yeah, well, she also ended up treating it sort of like an Aes Sedai would.
Yes, I thought that was very interesting.
So
it's not what she didn't ask me this particular question, so I can't answer that particular question.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then some things got left behind because they were in such a race to answer the question. So.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the problems with compulsion.
Yes.
It scrambles a person's brain. Well, sorry, spoilers.
Well,
we know that compulsion does that.
Yeah, we know that compulsion can compel, someone who would normally say, why do you need to know this? I don't know you. Kind of a vibe to, like, I want to please you. Depending on what kind of compulsion it is. Now, there are different types of compulsion. Now, what Mogadine was using was kind of like, I need information, so I need them to think that I'm perfect or whatever. So, and Grendel takes it on a whole other level, and we definitely see that from the dream sequences and also from the little meetings that Grendel has been in so far.
Mm-hmm. But the way Mogadine does things, I mean, yes, with the exception of Nyneave, she's actually, there probably isn't anybody around in the female channeler category at the moment that can best her in strength. Not that not
And
that we know of, not that we know of, and that at this point.
and it's funny
And
because the compulsion that Mogideon was using on them, what actually made it so that Nynaeve could fight her and best her was the fact that she sat there looking at her, and suddenly, it popped in her head that this woman sat there and used compulsion on them, and she was so angry about it that, she just like suddenly, woof, I'm full of the power and I'm gonna, kick your butt.
mhm.
Well, yeah, and it makes me wonder because apparently throughout the compulsion scene, Nynaeve, I guess, was tugging her braid, and that's
Yes.
what triggered, at least in the dream world. So it makes me wonder if Nynaeve wasn't in the dream world, and saw, Mogideon and the fact that she was tugging on her braid. Would she have remembered that she was compelled at all in the real world when she saw her again? So it just makes me wonder, if it wasn't if it was because of the dream world and kind of like the effect that can have on someone with the power, and the fact that she was tugging her braid real hard and it like
I
triggered
just think
it.
it popped
Like,
a memory cap like it would have
Yeah.
anybody.
because Mogideon like told them to forget, but apparently something triggered it in the dream world.
I want to save something, but it's spoilers, so.
And maybe I'm thinking, because I'm really thinking about what happened in this book more than what happened later. And so
Mhm.
I can't. I think of them at the same time. It's hard. Sorry.
It only gets worse trying to keep them separated as you get along in the series too.
yeah, because especially if you want to read the next book right after you read the current one. So yeah.
After a while, everything just sort of blends and meshes together. So.
Right. And, we get that a lot.
And or I pronounced that wrong.
I pronounce it Egwene.
Yeah, I kind of pronounce it.
Egwene. Thank you.
I don't know if I'm any more correct than you are, but that's how I pronounce it.
Yeah.
Egwene, whichever. Yeah, see, that one I don't know either. But we get to meet her.
Soul.
Well, we kind of met her already.
The sunshine.
Yeah,
no,
we
meet her
really get to meet her.
Right. We met her with Bael'Domon and the Great Hunt.
Mm-hmm.
And then, excuse me, then she comes along now, and the girls run into her. And that's actually right before Mogideon catches them, because that was the first time they channeled in the city.
Right.
So that's when Mogideon comes to them. But we find a Sanshin that isn't so monstrous suddenly.
Yeah.
Because everybody was sitting there thinking, all the Sanshin, they're just evil. They probably serve the shadow, blah blah blah. And then all of a sudden, here comes one that's a decent person.
Well,
so I thought that was an interesting ad.
Yeah, and while the views are kind of skewed, it's she's actually open to, learning a little bit more about Aes Sedai. Now, granted, I think it initially was for spy purposes, but she had Bethaman from the Great Hunt, so she kind of knows what's going on with the Idom here. That the oh gosh.
That the Soldom can actually learn to channel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is why the Idom also works on them. So, and she's also getting questioned by, gosh, why am I going blank on all of this? The Questioner. That's all I can say. The Seeker. Thank you.
The Seeker, yeah.
That worked for the Sanshin. and it makes me wonder, like, what he would have done with that information. Would
I
he
think
really?
the thing with the Seekers, excuse me, the thing with the Seekers is that, and it's confusing because the Seekers of Truth for the Children of the Light, and then their question. Wait, no. The questioners for the Children of the Light and Seekers for Truth for the Ascension. Okay, got it. Oh, shut up. Anyway, the Seekers for Truth, their main purpose is to keep the Ascension nobility in line because, obviously those who aren't of the blood don't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, they've got, the people who are the lower blood and then the high blood and then the imperial family. So their whole the whole purpose of them is to make sure the higher people stay in line. So I think in more than anything, he was trying to find out ways, because he had suspicions of Suroth and what she was doing. So it wasn't so much, that she was after Egwene as she, or as he was looking for proof that Suroth was up to something.
Well, not only that, just the fact that Egwene was kind of with Suroth a little bit in the Great Hunt, so he was kind of associated with her. So yeah, that was more than anything. But at the same time, it's kind of like, what would he have done with that information? I'm really curious to see what he would have done with that information. I don't think we ever really found out.
No, he does.
Yeah, I know. But
Yeah.
It just would have been it would have been interesting if what would have happened with that information. But fortunately, for the time being, it's still kind of kept in the hush hush. But
yeah, as a historian, I see a lot of parallels between the Shanshan society and how they routinely oppress people and think that it's good and right and just that they should do this, and the Old South.
Right.
We've got slavery of two different kinds in the Sanshan Empire. You've got the Daka Vale, if I pronounced that correctly.
Yes, you did.
And then you've got the Aes Sedai. It's or would be Aes Sedai within form of
women that can channel.
The women that can channel.
The Seldom and the Damani.
It's almost like a combination of slavery and persecution of people who are different than you, which still exists in our country today.
Yes.
Well, with anywhere really. It's around the world.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, yeah. There are a few places that have escaped it, but,
Yeah.
Yay, Sweden.
Yeah. Sweden. Everyone should just move to Sweden right now. But yeah, I definitely see a little bit of a parallel there, but also even more so, it's kind of weird because it's like you have the Damani and the Suldam that can actually raise or get promoted, so to speak, to work for the royal family, to work for people of the blood, and just people that work along the army lines. So there's definitely a rank there as well that can be very similar to slavery, I guess. And the Daka Bell, weren't those more like prisoners though, or
No, they were sold.
Servants.
They were servants.
They were servants. They were sold at the block.
It's what happened with Baal Domon because Egwene ended up buying him.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that they're naked
and you can set a Daka Vale free as long as you provide for them to be able to provide whatever it is they need to be able to provide for themselves. Like I said,
Right.
there's a
Right.
lot of parallels there
Yeah.
Yeah.
to the Old South. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, that and
and
indentured servitude.
Indenture servitude.
yeah, it also matches because we see Egwene and we realize here's a decent person in a society that we thought was completely, horrific and unredeemable. And once again, we've got another, other parallels because, the Old South wasn't full of all bad people, just a lot of brainwashed people who had been brainwashed into thinking that the wrong thing was right.
Yeah.
Well, look at Robert E. Lee.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the only reason he fought for the South was because Virginia seceded from the Union. Otherwise, he would have led the North troops.
Yep.
So,
A lot of people don't realize he was offered command of the Army of the Potomac.
So yeah, I mean, and I'm glad that we got to kind of see that because you can see that, you know what, she's actually keeping a little bit of an open mind here, and she's realizing that, you know what, and maybe if, Elayne and Nyneave weren't, or, were Aes Sedai, I don't know if that would have went as well. Because, let's be for real, if it was like one of those other Aes Sedai, she would have they would have turned Egwene completely off. She would have been very afraid of them and probably would have been even more set in her ways than she already was. But at least with Elayne and Nyneave, who are learning to be Aes Sedai, see, this is where it can work. Someone that's learning, but not quite got rid of them, like who they are.
Yeah.
She sees that, and also the fact that Elayne is, trying to train to be a ruler, and she also has the power, but she respects that power. She wants to rule, but she doesn't want to have to use her powers as a weapon in order to rule. Does that make sense? It's just an added bonus, so to speak.
Yeah.
right.
So she's seeing that, and that's a good thing. It helps. Let's if it takes one, let's try and change them all here. Like one person at a time, but at least some people can
Exactly.
keep an open mind here. So that was great. I did like that parallel, and the fact that she helped them out pretty much in the end there, because they definitely needed help.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And just like that whole parallel between Julian and Tom, let's be for real, Nyneave and Elayne, even though they had the power, they couldn't really use it because the Black Aja was after them. They would have known their location, which they wound up, figuring out anyway. At least Moghedien, because they got compelled. So they needed Tom and Julian, even though they didn't want to admit it, to learn the ins and outs of the city, because otherwise they would have been a fish out of water. They didn't know that culture.
In that sense, they already were Aes Sedai, not wanting to admit their limitations.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah. But I definitely like that they managed to work together to get into the Tanchico, or the Panarch Palace, to rescue
Amathera.
Amathera. Thank you. I literally just looked at her name like a half hour ago, and I still went blank. But Amathera.
It's Amathera. I had pronounced it Amathera, but
Amathera, who is actually being held prisoner from with the Black Aja, so they had to rescue her, and she needed.
You got to feel bad for her because
yeah.
Yeah.
she goes from
Spoilers.
one to another. Oh, sorry.
Spoilers.
Not enough. She got tortured.
There's enough to feel sorry for her. Even now, but yeah.
Yeah, it gets worse.
Okay, spoilers. Sorry.
The ice peppers.
We just know,
oh my
know
God.
that it's going to get worse for Amathera.
Yeah.
We're
She just
not gonna
falls
tell you
off the
how.
tough luck tree and hits every branch on the way down.
Oh, poor baby. But she actually gets to learn also a little bit of humility here, which can always be a good thing. Sorry, it can. But I loved the fight scene between Moghedien and Nyneave. Like, that was just so awesome. What did you guys think of that fight scene? And what made it
I
so
thought
bad
it
was
was.
more mental than anything. It was like you see them standing stock still, but you know that they're fighting.
Oh
Because
yeah,
they're
they even
blocking, they're trying to
mentioned that
block
if
each other. Yeah.
they even mentioned that if somebody who couldn't channel walked in, it would
They
just
wouldn't
be
have
like,
seen it.
yeah, they wouldn't have seen anything except two women staring at each other very intently, So it it always that
And
scene always made me wonder if for whenever Wheel of Time ends up hitting the screen, whether it's by virtue of a movie or a television series or whatnot, how they were going to show those scenes.
Mhm.
You know, just because of that. I mean, you can't exactly have a battle that you're looking at and be into it if you can't see what's going on.
And it may be something that they can kind of do like a little bit of both with, if they did kind of
Yeah.
do like a TV series kind of a thing. Or let's be for real, I think it would be more better. It would
it
be
would be.
probably be as a TV series versus a movie. I don't think.
I've
Oh God,
got a,
yes.
I've got a Facebook group devoted to that very idea.
Yes. So, yeah,
So
definitely check that out, guys. Where he's like trying to do like dream cast of these characters.
Mhm.
And some of them have actually been pretty good choices. So,
yeah, I haven't
dream.
agreed with all of them, but most of them, even if I don't agree with them, I'm not appalled by most of them.
Right. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like you can have more than one choice here, but one's you may feel like one's better than the other, but at least it's not too horrible if they did get cast.
Yeah, right
Um,
now we took a break from casting Aes Sedai because it seemed like it was getting a little monotonous, and we've switched over to the Aiel. So. But if you have not read the entire series, you don't want to try and get involved in the casting because we are discussing all of the characters, and there will be spoilers if you haven't read the whole thing.
Goran Vicinich for Demandred.
Yes,
Excuse me.
he did end up winning.
oh, okay.
I know.
Yay!
Trust me, I know.
You were making sure of that.
Well, yeah,
Well,
she changed my
one
mind on
thing with
my own casting list. So
the cars, I don't know if the people watching have seen Ariel's work, but I even talked her into using him as the pattern for the picture that she did on the card for Demandred. So yeah, he's Demandred no matter what anybody says.
So we are getting into the first hour a little bit, so we have to talk about Perrin. But definitely Nyneave and Elayne's story arc was definitely very important to what happens overall in the story. They at the very end of their story arc here, they ask Bael Domon to throw that thing in the sea.
mhm.
I was like, was that a good idea? I can't say anything. Gosh darn.
I always thought that it would have been better for them to have just thrown it in the river themselves.
Yes, I do agree with
Yeah.
that. I think if they had done it themselves, yeah. But I had a feeling that even then that wasn't gonna work. It was definitely gonna come back into play later on. I just didn't know how or when
Yeah,
or in
that
what
one.
capacity. But I knew then that as soon as they told him, "Hey, you need to do this," it wasn't gonna go well.
Yeah.
Um,
Same here.
yeah. But let's talk about Perrin. Oh my gosh.
Perrin.
Oh my gosh. My boo. Okay. So,
Turn the two rivers into the dying ground.
oh gosh. I don't know why I loved his
I'm
story
getting
arc the
goosebumps
best,
just
but
thinking
I
about it.
think it's just because of the wolves and the wolf dream and Hopper. Oh, we didn't even touch on Brigitta. Oh my gosh. Okay, so let's
Well,
backtrack a little bit.
Brigitte doesn't.
No, please.
Brigitte, they're meeting her. Yeah, they're meeting her in Tel'aran'rhiod, but they're not. She's not. She's not
Yeah, we haven't
anywhere
really
closer
known
than
her
that.
yet. Yeah, so we meet Brigitta. She actually talks to Perrin a little bit because she mentions it to Nyneave about meeting, the guy with the
The
wolf's eyes.
wolves.
the guy with the wolves, but I don't think Nynaeve really realized who she was talking about because no one knows that he can talk to wolves other than Moraine. And now,
And Lan.
and Lan, yes. So
Eggie.
What?
Egwene.
Oh,
Egwene, sorry.
Egwene.
Egwene.
Yeah.
Yeah, Egwene.
She
At the,
she has suspicions, but I don't think she really understands what it
No.
means, though.
She did because it when
She was having
Elias
visions?
was when
Oh,
Elias
okay. Never mind.
was with them.
Yeah.
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 She knew. She actually says out loud, he's right. You can speak to them.
Yeah. So Nynaeve didn't really realize who she was talking about when Brigitte mentioned him. But Brigitte has definitely been info dumping, that's for sure. She warns, Nynaeve initially about Moghedien, and just the fact that, she's dangerous, don't really approach her unless you feel like you can win, kind of a thing. And Guidel Kane, we meet Guidel Kane, her lover, that they spin out of the Wheel of Time. They eventually meet, and they have their own love story, kind of a thing. So it definitely kind of helps out a little bit. She's starting to help out in the dream world, which is cool. And we see her again. In fact, it was around the Tower of Genji, I think, with Perrin. If I recall,
Yeah.
that Perrin's her. Okay. But let's kind of backtrack a little bit with Perrin because we first saw him in the Stone of Tyr in the beginning of the book. He had, his little thing with Fael. Oh my gosh, that whole gag. That first part, it was sweet at first, but then she got jealous of Elayne, and now we know that Elayne is the Hawk. Like it's obvious at this point that Elayne is the Hawk. Did we find out what her sigil was?
Yeah, that's the diadem that she wears is the Hawk of Maine.
Maine, right? So that cat fight though between her and Elayne was kind of funny, and Rorik had to break them up. That was funny.
I loved Rorik coming along. It's like, don't force me to spank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Elayne has a respect for Rorik, which I think is pretty cool. And they have a respect for each other. It's kind of like he sees her as a daughter a little bit.
Well, he also
doesn't come
says
later,
that
though.
Yeah, he also says at some point that he and Elayne actually had an encounter where he had to set her straight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because
I've always wondered about that.
She tried seducing him. She tried seducing him because if you remember at the end of The Dragon Reborn, she comes in with the letter from Lanfear and tells Rourke that they disturbed, or that he and his Aiel disturbed her sleep, so she's going to have dinner with him at some point soon. And it's my thinking that she tried seducing him because she's a big thing about power, and he, put her in her place.
Yeah, I can totally not see Rourke being willing to go anywhere but Amy's. So, and his other and Dorinda. Yeah,
Dorinda and Amis. Which, you know what, I gotta hand it to him. Like, he can handle two women. Like, I guess, all right. One, I would have preferred one, but you know what? As long as you're faithful to both of your wives, I guess that works too. So
the whole thing about relationship is, regardless of how many participants it is, regardless of who it is trust.
Yeah.
So I mean, I've got no problem with polygamy. I got no problem with polyandry as long as the people doing it are okay with it themselves. That's all that matters to me.
Yeah.
We've been socially programmed.
I mean, look at Rand.
Yeah, look at Rand.
Yeah.
But we've been socially programmed to look at that as being a negative thing, and I don't think it necessarily is.
I know, and I've been programmed the same way, but I guess as long as they're aware of
There's
what's
one left
happening,
one.
and
Like I said, it's all about
it's consensual. You know what? I guess whatever. But for me, I just no, I can't.
and everybody is of consenting age.
Yes, of course, yes. That's
You
very
know,
important.
that doesn't always happen with some cases.
Let's not go there. But
But
as
you know,
yeah,
there were some Native American tribes who, you know, had similar customs to the whole sister wife concept.
hmm
So, you know, it
not too
there
far off the mark.
yeah, it's not too far off the mark. You know.
Which is yeah, again, that's
I
it is
don't
what it
know.
is.
I'll think about it.
But as far as Berylane and Fael, that cat fight was hilarious, and Fael almost got her butt kicked. Let's be for real. And
Yeah.
because of her immaturity here, she is the one that really caused Berylane to really go after Perrin. Like, she was willing to let it go,
Right.
but it was like, it's on and popping now. Like,
You made it a thing.
you made it a thing, and now it is going to be a thing. So,
And see,
um,
I
yeah.
really don't like Fael. I've got a major, you know, love to hate her thing.
I
Yeah.
can't stand her.
But I honestly have to say that I don't think Perrin would have been good with Berylane either.
No,
Right.
no.
You know,
I mean, because of Berlane's motives from the beginning, like it just it would not have worked. But as much as I don't like Fael, I do respect the fact that in her own way she loves Perrin, and
Yeah.
Perrin loves her. And the few times that they do actually communicate with each other, which does happen in this book, it makes me see like they can be good together if they communicate. If they communicate, they can work it out.
To me, they
I
seem
still,
like the definition of a dysfunctional and unhealthy relationship.
yeah, and that whole travel in the ways situation, I'm like, that was the height of immaturity on
I loved
mostly
how
on
Bane and
Fael's.
Shead. I loved how Bane and Shead let Perrin spank her when she
You
came
know
after
what?
him.
You know what?
Yeah.
I am kind of glad because they were like, look,
We didn't think you'd want us to interfere in a fight you picked.
exactly. And
Yeah.
the whole spanking thing is kind of like, oh, but at the same time, you acting like a child. Come on.
That was what that was. That was what that scene was about. It was not about subjugating a woman or putting a woman in her place. It was about, are you a woman or are you a child? You know, are you an adult or are you a child? You know, that I don't get any of the, you know,
And I never got that vibe
the male
either.
chauvinistic thing from that
No,
scene.
and I never really got that vibe either. I think it's like you said, it was more like you're acting like a child. So this is what happens when you act like a child.
Yeah.
You've been acting like a child this like pretty much the entire time because you got in a little tiff with Berlin and you lost.
And oh my gosh, poor Loyal.
Oh my gosh, he was just stuck in the middle. I was just like, ooh. But I love Loyal. I love Loyal. He was so awesome in this story arc. Just, you know, him traveling the ways, him, you know, staying with Perrin and realizing, and when they realized, you know, that the ways wasn't closed, that he had to go back and close it, he went. And at great risk to himself, and it hurt him to, like, create a weapon. Was this when he created the weapon from the tree, or was it, did someone give him
No, that was in the Great Hunt that he made the weapon.
Yeah, so it still hurt him.
He ended up with an axe.
Yeah. So him and Gaul went to the ways, to go back to the ways to, you know, close it because they realized that that's where the Trollocs and, you know, the hordes of Trollocs were, you know, traveling, and that's why so many of them are in Emond's Field. And so at the same time, though, we're dealing with the Stagon White Cloaks. Pretty much led by Ordith for the most part, and oh gosh, what's his face?
Dane.
Bane. What is it? Bane?
Dane.
Dane. Yes. Dane.
Yeah, Bornhold.
Bornhold's son, because Bornhold died in the Great Hunt, and he found out about it, and Bayar twisted it, of course, and was like, well, he was there. He must have been responsible for it. It's his fault that your dad's dead. And so now he has this vendetta against Perrin that's completely baseless.
He spun it like a White Cloak would.
Yeah, he spun it like a White Cloak. So, and Bornhald's like getting all drunk and stuff, and they're not willing to help the Emmons Fielders because they're, they keeping Perrin, under wraps. They're trying to protect him. You're like, you're protecting a murderer and a dark friend. And just their whole baseless accusations of everyone being a dark friend was just completely ridiculous. But and of course, then Bowie and their family are playing complete suck ups. But they eventually switch back too, so to speak. They get in line with the rest of the towners of Emmons Field now, and we definitely get to see how Perrin's Tavernus works in this book, because he has this quiet leadership that people are drawn to. They listen to what he has to say because he actually has some good points, and he's still young, and he doesn't realize that he can no longer be a blacksmith or just a blacksmith, and him kind of slowly, very slowly, even by the end of this book, he's still kind of in denial about this, that he is a leader.
His emo
he's
stuff.
in denial for he's totally emo about it.
Yeah, he's totally emo about it. But just seeing him in action was just still cool, even though we still had the emo side of it. Like, the emo side of it was really annoying, don't get me wrong, but just seeing him come into character a lot more in this book than we have in the other two books was really cool. And we actually get introduced to Luke a little bit more in this book, and we figure out that Esam and Luke are the same person. And
it was actually my uncle who pointed that out to me when he realized I hadn't caught it, and then he's like, do you remember the scene when they're getting ready for that big push and they start yelling Esam, Esam, and I was just like, oh my god, he could tell that I had missed that, and he pointed it out to me, and in typical storyteller fashion, he tried to say it as loud and in as much of a Trolloc type manner as he could. Sent chills down the spine, really, to hear the way he did that. I mean, he was so awesome with that sort of thing.
Yeah. So initially you did not suspect at all that Esam and Luke were the same person?
I had not caught it. No.
Oh my gosh, I kind of caught it around the second time, I think, when Perrin was meeting Luke, not Luke. Yeah, it was Esam and Luke. It was kind of like when he was meeting them around the second time, or seeing them the second time, that was kind of like, ooh, what? And it upset me very much that there were no wolves, that Esam was killing these wolves, and I'm like, you butthole. I wanted to wring his neck myself. I was just so upset that Perrin was witnessing him skinning a wolf in the wolf dream. I was just like, oh my gosh, you gotta stop him, Perrin, you gotta stop him.
It is a shame, and it would have been so much easier if it hadn't happened, that he ended up moving at just the last instant.
Oh my gosh, go!
But no, one of the things that got me on that one was when Perrin, going back for a minute, when Perrin started giving orders, and then he realized he was giving orders to Tam and and he's like, I'm sorry, and he's like, Perrin, this isn't the first time I've followed a younger man, because he had the sense to know what to do. It's like Tam was totally okay with it. So, and it shows another good aspect to Tam's character, because yes, Tam knows a lot, but he is also able to not be so full of himself as to think he was the only one who could, he recognized that Perrin had a head for knowing what to do when, and he was willing to lead by following. and it takes a very strong and mature character to be able to do that.
Oh, I loved him. I loved the
Yeah.
Emon Fielders in this story, or in this arc, because they really rallied behind Perrin, especially against the White Cloaks at the very end here. Like, they were even willing to hide him, even from the beginning when he first, showed up. Oh my gosh, Aunt Perrin's family. I cried.
I did too.
I
Yeah.
was so devastated because I was even looking forward to really, knowing about Perrin's family. I was devastated. I was like, oh my gosh, his little brother, his sister, his mom, and his dad. Like, because we met, the blacksmith and his wife, and they were really cool. And I was like, I was so looking forward to meeting his family, and we won't get to meet his family. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to point out, well, before we got completely away from Isam and Luke,
Mhm.
was that if you remember in The Great Hunt, when Varen had copied down the prophecy that had been written on the wall, it mentions both Luke and Isam, that they had met each other. One lived, one didn't, but
Yes,
both
yes.
still are.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it was around my second or third reread that I realized that, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that is so."
And
I would
with,
love for more info on that.
for with what you call it, Moraine had realized, because it mentioned Isam, that being Luke's cousin. Yeah, so technically he's the only other person who could be king of the Valkyrie.
That he had to make sure that Lan didn't find out that he was alive.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
Because she
And
didn't
then,
know how he would react.
And then when they turn around and you get to the Two Rivers and he's there, it was not a surprise to me that they were the same being.
Right.
That they were Slayer, because they kept mentioning how much like Lan Isam looked.
Mhm.
So it was like, okay, so I mean that makes perfect sense to me there. It's like in the waking world, it's normally Luke, and in the Wolf Dream, it's normally Isam.
Yeah, but tell me that that you would not have loved to have been able to see Lan go sword to sword
Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
with Isam.
Yes.
If you try and tell me you wouldn't want to see that, I'll call you a liar.
I loved to see that and Lan kick his butt. Like,
Oh,
seriously.
heck yeah, Lan would have kicked his butt. I don't think
Oh
Ethan
my
was ever
gosh.
that much of a swordsman. I mean, I think he was more than competent, but I don't think he was anywhere near the level
No.
that he would need to have been.
No.
Yeah, no.
I mean,
And I thought it was interesting how Luke actually became afraid of Ordeath a little bit here, because he was after Ordeath, and Ordeath was like not having it.
Right.
well, Ordeath freaks out both the Dark Friend / Chosen camp, as well as the good people. He's become something completely apart from either one of them.
Yeah. We are starting to see a major difference here with Ordeath and his level of evilness. Like, it's starting to freak out even the Faves and the Trollocs, and that's saying something.
Anybody who can pin a
Fade
to to a wall like that.
He definitely sent a message.
It's a message I would have paid attention to, that's for sure.
Just saying. And it makes me wonder, like, I think Luke was trying to bring Ordeath back to
Actually, they were trying to kill him.
Well, that too.
Yeah,
but
they wanted to take him out of play.
That was the main thing, was that they killed the renegade, is what his actual words were.
Right.
Yeah, basically even, even the shadow side viewed him as a rabid, as a dog gone rabid,
Yeah, and something that
which
needed
is
to
a
be
good
put down.
analogy, I think.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Ooh, Lord, we ain't seen the last of all these guys. Let's be for. Ooh. I
I,
just.
yeah, hint at a spoiler though. I must say I was definitely disappointed
Yes.
at in
Yes.
that's
Like,
all I'm gonna say. It was anticlimactic.
in a way it was.
Very.
In a way it was.
So
Yeah, but so Perrin eventually, like, gets the people, to stick together or to, meet at Emmons Field, because the farmers were kind of spread out, and so the Trollocs were able to pick them off like willy
mhm.
nilly. So he managed to get the townspeople together so they can have a fighting chance against the Trollocs, and he kind of goes on a rampage because of what happened to his family. He's like, I'm hunting these dudes down, I'm hunting these animals down, and I'm going to execute them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And
he had said,
He's
that
just
he heard the Trolloc, or that the Trollocs called the Aiel Waste the dying ground, and he meant to,
dying. Yeah.
he meant to have them give the name to the two rivers.
yeah. So it kind of works a little bit, but then it kind of cost him, because some of the boys that went with him, some of them didn't come back, and he felt really guilty about that. Because he felt like, if he
Yeah.
hadn't have, gone on that crusade, they could still at least have been alive. Now, if they had died, so to speak, with the, Trollocs attacking the two rivers, and maybe he still would have felt guilty, but I don't think it would have been on that kind of a level.
This is a land comment, and I'm not going to say what it's from. It's not really a spoiler, but we haven't talked about this particular book yet. But the thing that Perrin doesn't realize is that if he had made different choices, some of the ones who were dead would be alive, and some of the ones, but some of the ones who were alive would be dead.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have mattered what choices he made. There were going to be
They
people who
still would be
died.
dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
True
that.
So I
But
love the scene in Rayon's wagon with
yes.
Fael and Perrin.
Yes.
It was like it gave me what turned out to be a false hope, unfortunately, that there could actually be some openness and honesty between the
Oh my
two of them.
gosh.
And it was a touching scene for the amount of time that it lasted.
Well, yeah. And even their wedding, I also thought their wedding was, kind of touching, because it's a wedding,
Mm-hmm.
and he obviously loves her. Like, his vows, and I was like, oh my gosh, Perrin, you're so sweet.
The thing I can't get over with Fael is just she's a liar.
Yeah.
I can't abide untruthfulness, whether it's through deception or outright lying. It's still untruthfulness.
Yeah,
Right.
but I definitely thought that the scene in Rhaena's cabin, or wagon, was significant in their relationship, because this was someone that he loved. He could finally be honest with her and open up, saying, I can talk to wolves, don't freak out. And she didn't freak out. It was like, that's a part of you. I love you as you are. And it just, and again, it's like, despite several things that I do not like, that I absolutely hate about Fael, that scene, I had to give her the utmost respect, and just, they, in their own way, they still love each other. And I can't knock that. That's probably like the one thing that I like about her, is the fact that she loves Perrin. Sometimes she goes about it in a way that frustrates the heck out of me, and and the fact that she doesn't communicate with him. Like, it's like she expected him to learn about Saldean ways and how she thinks, and that's not the case here. He doesn't know about Saldean culture. He lived in the Two Rivers his entire life. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself here.
Yeah. We're getting on to our Fael bashing, and we're going to end up giving away some spoilers.
But you know what? She was awesome, even though he told her, being the male protectiveness that's, ingrained in him, he's like, you need to go away, because I'm going to die. And she goes out to get help instead. Because that one soldier came back, he was like, we're coming. So that was like kind of a hint that, they can get some help. So she took that and ran with it, literally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
One scene that was really, really harsh to deal with was Aram.
Oh yes.
When
Oh my god.
when he's like, picks
Yeah.
up his sword and it's like, can I have this one? And Perrin's like about, choking on his food. And his grandmother comes down the stairs and she's like, no, no, put it down, put it down. He's like, I could have saved my mother. And it's like Perrin at that point, he was going to tell him to put it down, but once he sat there and said, I could have saved my mother, it was like, that was it. Perrin was gone. It's like,
Yeah.
go ahead,
Yeah.
keep the sword.
Yep. Keep the sword.
Yeah.
Because that helped with Egwene's prediction or the visions that she saw in the Great Hunt, or was it in the Dragon Reborn, or was it even in this book? She saw
Actually,
this coming.
No, she saw the
Or was
tinker.
it Min?
No, it was Min
it
who
was
saw the tinker with the sword.
men that saw the
Okay.
tinker with the
So
sword.
we got the vision with Min, with the tinker with the sword, and this is what happened. This is.
I
the
had a
result.
feeling that when I first heard Min, heard that about from Min, the tinker with the sword, I thought it was going to be Aram.
Mhm. Well,
You know.
I kind of figured it out once they came back. Once we saw the Tinkers again and Aaron was in with the group, I was like, yep, that's him. Yep.
And
With the sword.
for the longest time, I thought that, because at the beginning of the Great Hunt, you see a tinker among the Dark Friends at the Dark Friend Social.
Mhm.
For the longest time, I thought it was Aram, and then at one of the questionnaires or whatever, it was asked and it didn't get a read and find out. It got an absolute no. So, for me that was like, okay, so then who is?
I don't
And
think
I
we
don't think
find
we
out.
ever found out.
we never found out.
And
It was never
I think it would have
answered.
been cool to find out who it was, especially if it was someone that we knew. But maybe it was just a random tinker that happened to be part of a random tribe that happens to be
Actually,
randomly.
let me think. Is it this book or is it the next book? I think it's the next book. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, clearly, whoever that tinker was does not follow the way of the leaf.
No, obviously not.
Unless other tinkers are watching.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, when we go into our little spoiler conversation, I'll go into that.
Yeah,
Because it just hit me.
I'll say this regarding that scene though with Aram and his grandmother. It did pull at my heartstrings, but at the same time, when I was first reading it, when I'm where everybody else is here, who's just starting out, I was sitting there saying, "Hey, sorry, Grandma."
Yeah.
I totally understood it, but I didn't have foresight, and that's all I'm going to say on that.
Right.
Well, yeah. Maybe.
Force,
Yeah.
when you get further, you're going to wonder how right you were to feel that way.
Yeah, definitely later on, but yeah, when I first, read that scene, it was kind of like, yeah, because of the way of the leaf, just in general, like you're just gonna die. You're not gonna try and save yourself, like whatsoever, other than running away. It always bothered me. So when that happened, it was kind of like, but I get it too. And it's like I get, trying to take the nonviolent approach, but at the same time, it's kind of like,
I am not a pacifist by any stretch. I couldn't have been a police officer for 3 years and have been a pacifist, obviously.
Right.
But that scene between Ryan and Perrin and Elias in the Eye of the World, it has some truth to it, and it's something that would do very well for a lot of soldiers and a lot of police officers to realize this, because not all of them do. But what he was saying about the axe being dulled as it chopped and the sap pitting the metal and rusting the blade, you do harm to somebody and you're
It
harmed
does harm
by
to you.
it does harm to you even if you aren't physically hurt.
Mhm.
And that really, when I realized the truth of that in one of my rereads after my days with the police force were over, I realized that above and beyond the visible scars, there were a lot of scars that you couldn't see,
Mhm.
and that you have to live with them. And it made it didn't change me into a pacifist. If somebody's trying to hurt me or hurt my family or
Mhm.
something, I'll do what's necessary. I will deal with that hurt, but it makes me much more hesitant. It makes me, and not to the point of being dangerous. I'm not going to hesitate when action is needed, but it makes me look at everything a whole lot more carefully, you
Mhm.
know, because I realize, okay, if this comes to violence, even if I win, I lose.
Mhm.
Right.
You know, and I think that the truth of it is right there. I don't agree with going to full pacifism, with it, but at the same time, if more people were aware of it, maybe they would be a little bit less uh, eager, I
Mhm.
guess.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, it's a lesson that stands learning by a lot of people. So
Right.
Okay.
Now,
sorry, I
I
just
got
totally
one
put everything
question.
like all serious and everything.
That's okay.
So.
I got one question. When you did a rewatch of the first half of this, how far did we get with Rand and the Aiel? Did
We kind of
we
touched on
go
a
through
little bit what happened at the end with the reveal of what the Aiel are. Um,
right?
Not so much what happened right after that, because wait, we went back to Roridion with Asmodean and Rand. We didn't touch on that. Oh gosh, do we need to do a part 3? Gosh darn it. Yeah, because
There,
it's coming across the hour and a half mark, and we've kind of touched on a lot of stuff in this book.
there's a lot in this book.
We may need to do a part 3, guys. I'm sorry, and maybe the part 3 won't be as long, but
Yeah,
Right.
just kind of like a little mini segment.
yeah, a
That's
mini
okay.
segment.
Wait until we get to Fires of Heaven.
Oh gosh, we may need to do a 3-parter on that one too. There's just so much in that book. But let's
And
try to
while
do.
I could do these for hours, I don't think there are a lot of people that would want to sit in front of
No,
YouTube for that long.
no.
So,
Yeah.
So let's. Unfortunately, we can't really do a spoilery section. Maybe just a quick 5-minute one. So let's go ahead and end the regular portion of the show, and let's do a quick 5-minute spoilery section here. So thank you everyone
Okay.
who has at least read the books up to this point, and continue reading, guys. We can't wait to talk about the rest of the series during this reread. But let's quickly, if you have not read the rest of the series, please stop watching now. And then we're going to get into a quick 5-minute spoiler section, so at least Christy can get it out of her chest what she wanted to say earlier. So, all right, so now we're going to be in the brief spoilery section here. Christy, what did you want to get out of your chest here?
I just realized we were talking about the Tinker at the Dark Friend Social, is that if you remember the scene where they come across, or where Matt and the band come across the Tinker's caravan that has been totally slaughtered and butchered. I mean,
Yeah.
and it says "Tell the Dragon Reborn," and then it ends there. And
Whoa.
they're like, "Tell the Dragon Reborn what?" Well, I guess we found that very well could be our dark friend.
Wasn't it the Gray Man,
Dark,
though?
our dark friend
I
Tinker.
thought that was.
No, it was a Tinker.
It was the Tinker? Oh my god.
I could be wrong, but that's the only thing that happens with the Tinkers that's bad from this point on. So I'm
Okay.
really thinking that our missing Tinker that's a dark friend was involved with that.
Wait, what book was that? Because we may need to definitely touch on that when we get to it.
I
Was it Lord
believe
of Chaos or was it
I believe it was
the seventh book?
I believe it was Lord of Chaos because it's right after they leave the one town, and Matt tells them to make as much noise as possible to make them think that they're going after Samael. So
Okay.
it would have to be book 6.
Okay. So
Something I've wondered.
oh.
Sorry, this was more in relation to Aram. Later on, when at one point when Perrin is watching Aram practice, this is when this is like past when Rand has sent Perrin looking for Masema.
Mhm.
Right.
And he's watching Aram practice, and he was saying that the soldiers in the wing guard had said that Aram was good, very good, with the sword. That always made me wonder, if Aram was actually anywhere near Blade Master status.
Mm.
It could have been.
Obviously he's never fought a
'Cause
Blade
he's not-
Master, but
It makes you wonder if he ever did, would he have at least been even, so to
yeah,
speak, by that point? Um, that would have been an interesting
because I mean
plot point.
we know he learned from a Blade Master.
Yeah, because
Right.
Tam taught him, right?
Tam was the one that
Right.
taught him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Mm. Well, I'm glad we never really got to test that, at least against Tam. So that's always good. So
Something tells me that Tam always held something back so that he had something in reserve.
true.
Yeah.
True
Yeah.
that. Oh, it would have been so nice for him to have taught Rand if they had more time. Oh my gosh, that would have been so awesome.
That scene was beautiful, though.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know,
I
in
love it when he sits there and takes on all those Trollocs in A Memory of Light, and Lan sees him doing it, and he says, "I always wondered if you had deserved, to be deserved that blade, and now I know."
Oh,
It's
yes,
like,
that was
yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
We'll
Tam is
definitely have to
kick-ass.
mention that again when we actually finally get to the last book. I don't know when that's going to happen. Hopefully within sometime
It's
that
gonna be a
that
couple of
that
it'll be
book's
years.
sometime
gonna that
next
book's gonna
year.
need a six-parter.
Yeah, it'll have to be like a six-parter. But we'll thanks guys for watching us. You can definitely catch us in the archives here on the Nerd Element YouTube channel. Thanks for watching, listening. If you've listened to us or watched us live here, we should hopefully be back. We may just need to do it again next week so we can finish up the Shadow Rising, so we can move on to the Fires of Heaven. So thank you again, guys. Where can people find you? Unless you just want to, stay here, that's fine too.
Yeah. Well, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can find them with me doing the Wheel of Time reread. So thank you guys for doing this with me. This has been awesome. Just getting into the meat and potatoes of each book here has been a blast, and just reliving this series is just I can't. Feeling, hearing and talking with like-minded fans is just like yay. I'm glad. I'm just so happy. So
Hold on,
hopefully
let
you
me
join
write
us.
something really fast.
So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Okay, we'll definitely get those details out for you soon. Thanks. Say bye, everybody.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye,
everybody.
everybody.